Hillary has been lengthening her excuses as to why she lost the election. She didn't really lose the election. It was stolen from her by, I think it's up to 24 different excuses she has now. Number 24 is content farms in Macedonia. And as I said, my grandfather was a Macedonian content farmer, and we often think about, gathering on the porch and recalling the old days on the Macedonian. He never thought that the old content farmers he left behind in Macedonia would one day steal the U.S. presidential election. They are gnarled, hard-working Macedonian peasants, and the way they were able to reach out and steal the election.
Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, they are almost free at last. The government of Macedonia has ended the dreaded curfews and is looking to ease coronavirus restrictions despite the fact that people continue to get ill and die. The reason for this, according to the government, is that no one is obeying the restrictions. But could it be the demand of citizen that elections be held as quickly as possible? The new date offered by the de facto Imperator Zoran Zaev is July 5. The last time parliamentary elections were held in July was on America's Independence Day, July 4, back in 2006. And in those elections, Vumero Dopamine won by a landslide. Makes you stop and think. On a personal note, I am now into my 25th year. That's a quarter of a century with Macedonia and the Macedonians. I first arrived in Macedonia on a Saturday, May 25, 1996, to explore Skopje and see if I could return for a 3-month gig that July with a humanitarian group before returning to Washington, D.C. to continue with my illustrious career, whatever that was. And now, a full 24 years later, going on 25, I am very glad it turned out the way it did. We'll discuss all this and more on this episode of the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast. I'm Jason Miko, coming to you from the totally free and sovereign state of Arizona.
And this is Cvetin and Jason, calling in from the almost and soon-to-be freed Skopje Republic of Macedonia.
Free at last, free at last. So, yes, today, so we're recording this on Tuesday, May 26th. So you have a curfew tonight?
Yeah, this is the last one.
Okay, so this will then drop on Wednesday, May 27th, and you will be free at last.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful.
And more importantly, restaurants open on Thursday.
Oh.
Just on the terraces and the outside areas. They're probably going to try and have the people keep some distance on the terraces, and the closed inside spaces, they will be banned for any customers. So, but okay, the weather is nice. It's almost June, and this is exactly what we need in Skopje to get some fresh air and some sun after all this confinement and being forced, to sit on park benches like idiots and drink styrofoam coffee and stuff, which we don't do. We drink coffee from porcelain here.
Yes, y'all are lacking, and you have vitamin D deficiency from not being outside, not having any sunshine. But that'll be nice to get out on the terraces. It'll be interesting, and maybe you can have a report for us by our next podcast. How many restaurants haven't opened or won't reopen? I'd be very curious because I've got some favorites there.
Well, they've been preparing. You could see that everybody's anxious to open. I don't think anybody will drop out. Has dropped out so far. They obviously had some losses. Some of them tried to do schemes like paid for, buy vouchers for once we reopen, you get to eat at a discount. But I don't think it worked a lot. So everybody just decided to take the money from the government to keep as much of the staff hired as possible, and grit their teeth and wait it out. And yeah, I mean it's coming. It should open on Thursday, and the borders should open on June 1st, meaning that we'll open for other countries. I didn't catch it if we open for any country or just those that have low numbers of infections. But actually, we're one of the worst countries in Europe in terms of the death rate and infections. So I don't think it will be stupid that we exclude other countries that have a worse rate because there's not that many of them, unfortunately, so far. So I guess we'll just open to anybody who could normally come to Macedonia. Will probably be able to come starting June 1st, and we will end the quarantine. So if you come here now, you would have to go to 2 or 3 weeks of quarantine in a hotel somewhere, but after June 1st, this will end. You can just
Right.
come
Well,
here.
that's good to know, and it wouldn't make any sense both for business travel and for leisure travel. I mean, I certainly would not fly over there for
Yeah.
2 weeks and then spend the entire 2 weeks in a hotel or
Yeah.
somebody's apartment without going out. That would be madness, and the same for any other country. So, and it sounds to me as the borders start to open up and Macedonia has a higher infection rate and death rate on a per capita basis. My understanding is that some of the other countries around there might keep you all from coming into their countries
Yeah.
as opposed to the other way around. So,
The Greeks desperately need us to come there, so they will not have any restrictions. But Montenegro said they will probably have some restrictions, which would keep us out. But we spent most of our tourism money in Greece anyway, and the Greeks will open the border for us.
right. Well, good. Well, I am sure that folks there, including you. Now, I know that, a few weeks ago, Vumero was talking about trying to encourage folks to stay in Macedonia and tour and see all of Macedonia. We've talked about this on the podcast before, and I'm assuming that, some folks will just feel like doing that, sticking around closer to home and exploring Macedonia as opposed to going out as they see how this whole thing shakes out through the summer months. And that's fine, but I am very glad to see that things are, and I'm using air quotes here, getting back to normal. And that's good. So June 1, you said. June 1, borders open?
For the borders, yeah.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, they had to do it eventually. I mean, there was
yeah.
open violation of the curfew and all the restrictions for the Ramazan Bayram, the Eid, the end of the month of Ramazan, by the Muslim community. I mean, they negotiated real hard to narrow it down. As the last weekend we were supposed to have a long curfew, like for Easter, when it was
Right.
almost 4 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was cut down to 1.5 day, and even then, people just especially in the Muslim quarters, they just ignored it. So it really ultimately, people said, well, what's the point of this? I mean, the numbers are high. We have 10, 20, 30, up to 40 people in newly diagnosed every day. We have 1, 2, up to 4 people dying every day. There are some days with no deaths, mercifully, but usually it's between 1 and 4. So this is bad. I mean, Greece, Croatia, countries much bigger than us, have much less, way below our numbers. Montenegro declared an end. Slovenia is close to declaring an end to the epidemic. So it's really bad. I mean, the numbers are bad, and the government is blaming it on the people. The people are saying that the healthcare system was unprepared, and it was just, they were being poseurs at the start, and then once things really got bad, they were floundering on the part of the government. They were unable to provide much in terms of masks and equipment, and so, plenty of blame to go around, but the numbers are really bad.
Yeah, that's been the same here as well. I think that's been the same in every country where the people are blaming the government's blaming the people, and never the twain shall meet. And that's just going to be the way it continues to be. And I think we collectively, humanity, have figured out that we sure don't know a lot about this, and so we're kind of taking tentative steps and whatnot. You've got we call them the lockdown enthusiasts versus those that want to open up and get back to work and get back to business. In my drive to the office this morning, Cvetin, I could tell that things are back to normal here because it was the normal traffic that I usually experience in driving down to the office, like driving through a river of molasses. So on the one hand, that's good. On the other hand, yesterday I was out in southeast Arizona with some family hiking in an old ruined Army campsite where the U.S. Army was stationed to defend an overland trail route that started in San Francisco and went to St. Louis. stagecoach, the Butterfield stagecoach, and it's desolate. And anyway, it's beautiful and whatnot. But I couldn't help it. I was looking up in this stunningly blue sky, and saw two planes going in opposite directions right by each other. And I thought, oh, that's very cool. See commercial air travel get back to normal. So, and I will look forward to my next trip there. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but as I opened up in the monologue there, I am now in my 25th year with Macedonia. Mm-hmm. So it was 24 years ago, on May 25, 1996, that I first flew into Macedonia. I had been in Croatia the prior week we were representing the Croatian National Tourist Board. So I had been sailing up and down the Adriatic with American travel writers. It was a very difficult job. And I had been in touch with this gentleman with Mercy Corps, a humanitarian group based in Portland, Oregon, prior to that, the year before that. And he said he was moving his office from Zagreb down to Skopje, but doing a lot of work in Kosovo, and he had a job opening there in July of '96 for 3 months, 3-month temporary job opening. And he said, would you be interested? And I said, well, you know what? I'm going to be in Croatia on this date. I'll take it's Memorial Day weekend. Then I'll take an extra day and fly over to Skopje and just spend 3 days in the capital there and see if I could stand to come back and live for 3 months. And so at the end of those 3 days, I said, yeah, I can do this. I can do it for 3 months. I'll come back, take a leave of absence from my job, come here for 3 months to Macedonia, have some fun, have an adventure, mingle with the locals, enjoy their food, do a little work, and then go back to Washington, D.C. to continue on with my illustrious career, whatever that was. And 3 months, 3 days turned into 3 months, turned into 24 years, now into my 25th year with Macedonia. And as I said in the column that I just published, I think I got the better end of the deal because I got the friendship of the Macedonians. So it's been a good 24 years, going on to my 25th year. Next year, Cvetin, I will have to figure out. I'm going to have to be there in Macedonia to celebrate a quarter of a century. So, but we've got a year to plan for that, and I look forward to that.
Yeah, we can even have restaurants open by then. And,
I sure hope so.
choose some nice place.
No, I don't know. What will I do? Maybe I should rent out a restaurant and just throw a big wingding. So
yeah.
We'll see. But I will be back.
Definitely got plenty out of it.
Yeah, I'll be there before that. So
yeah.
But as we look at the calendar and as we discuss the coronavirus, there was some YouTube video that my family was sharing with me, where the guy is a Southerner and he keeps talking about the coronas. So as we are talking,
coronas crossing our border.
As we were talking about the coronas here, so elections. We've been talking about the last couple of podcasts. Now it looks like Zoran Zaev has graciously allowed or suggested July 5, which is a Sunday. What's the talk about town there on July 5? What do the other parties say?
Well, he was still stomping his feet about June 21st, which was his preferred date. He wants to get this as soon as possible. We were speculating in past episodes whether this means he has a huge deliverable on Bulgaria planned for July sometime and needs to get it done, have elections before he delivers on, I don't know, Gotsodolcha for the Macedonian language. It's probably something ginormous because, considering how hard he's pushing for elections as soon as possible, or he wants to use the temporary bump in popularity for the healthcare minister, who was, as I said, at the start portraying himself as competently handling the crisis. Now, by the end, essentially the ministry is just raising its arms and saying, oh no, we tried, but you people are ungovernable. But this, obviously he got a bump in the polls like in any other country once you have an existential crisis, or maybe just the economy, because everybody expects that the bottom hasn't fallen out. I mean, the stock market is actually doing very good. The real estate market is untouched. We've had this before, going through enormous crisis with the real estate market just ignoring everything. So, but everybody's expecting that something happens later in the year. So Zaev has been pushing for elections as soon as possible. He's still pushing for June 21st, but he was talking on the phone with the Kosovar Prime Minister Kurti, and Kurti was doing the rounds calling everybody, Pendarovsky, Spasovsky, Zaev, and then they all told him that they're now, probably going to accept or going for early July for elections, and then Kurti this was given as a private information, but Kurti just put this in a Facebook comment because he's also angling for elections, I think, sooner rather than later. And he said, look, Macedonia is going to have its elections in July. These clowns told me just the other day, and and he actually spilled the beans on Zaev. But Vimmer is still saying, listen, the numbers remain horrific. People are still scared to vote. Polls show that, more than half of the people want to vote September or later. Significant numbers there are different polls about this. Significant numbers are saying that they will not vote if elections are held now, but will vote if they're held later. So, Vimmer is saying this is going to be a very flawed, illegitimate election if it's held in June or July. And they are proposing mid-August, early to mid-September. And apparently they're still negotiating this. So we will see how it works.
Interesting. Well, and of course the State Election Commission needs to weigh in. You've got OSCE and their election monitoring mission, oh dear, and others that will have an interest. They don't, certainly the internationals don't have a say in it, but they have an interest in it. So I guess we'll see. But in the meantime, as the corona still takes its toll, you mentioned restaurants starting to open up. That's good. We'll see how the economy does. But then you've got the ongoing, never-ending, drip, drip, drip media of scandals. And so, it's been a year since I think Branko Geroski kind of blew the lid on these various scandals, Racket 1, Racket 2, probably, I think there's Racket 3. And with the incredible fall from grace, the Katicia Neva, who is the chief of the special prosecutors, the special prosecutor office has gone away. She's in jail. Several of her accomplices are in jail. Boki 13, of course, who is one of the key figures in this whole thing. Then you've got the scandal with the health minister, who obviously to some has been a hero during this thing, but he's wrapped up in a scandal. Dan Donchev, the director of the health fund, who just stepped down a couple of weeks ago, and Branko Geroski, I know, has done a couple of exposés on him and how much money he has allegedly stolen and whether or not he's going to flee, etc. But anyway, you've got all these scandals, and I guess the question is, for listeners, where are we with the current prosecution, and will this make any difference, frankly, to the voters?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's been baked in the cake so far. The collapse of Janeva and any pretext that the Colored Revolution, so strongly supported by the internationals, was about the rule of law and justice and all that stuff. She's been abusing her position politically at start to get at Vimera, and then financially once she was, unrivaled, unchecked in her power, she just started prosecuting people so she could extort money from them and sharing the money with Zaev and his DSM. So this has been processed, but there are, Vimera has announced they have additional tapes. There was this, I didn't like this. This was really out there. Vimera leader Mickovsky was asked about his opinion of Zoran Verushevsky, or actually his son.
Oh, right,
Alexander Verushevsky, who's a complete lunatic. Yeah, the kid has been shooting up the country for years before he was pardoned for a murder attempt, and then kind of settled down. And Mickovsky went out of his way to praise the crazy younger Verushevsky as a good patriot and family person, at a time when Verushevsky has been posting on Facebook that he has dirt on Zaev, who has his father as security advisor. So obviously VMRO has been announcing they have evidence about Zaev, wiretaps, whatnot, and to the point that Mickovsky is apparently now friends with the younger Verushevsky, and obviously something will come of it. My, disgust that even sitting with these people, sharing the same city with these people, notwithstanding, apparently VMRO is telegraphing to Zaev that they have more evidence. As soon as an election date is set, we can expect these things to begin to appear, these wiretaps. In the meantime, it was a particularly bad day today. There was the closing arguments in the prosecution's case in the trial, and Vilma Ruskovska, the prosecutor, she was out there just all blaming everything on Katica Janeva and completely ignoring Zoran Zaev and the political party who Janeva served, so capably, should we say. And like, she did it all by herself, and all the money ended with herself, and Ruskovska was all floral and descriptive, like Katica Janeva thought she's Charlie's angel, and she still thinks she is, and everybody,
So did the public.
she destroyed. Yeah, so did the ambassadors and everybody who supported her. But now she, betrayed her position, blah, 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 but all the while completely ignoring, not doing her job in the sense that she should follow up on where the money ended up. Ruskovska did all she could to present the case that all the money was spent for clothes for Boki 13, trips and fancy furniture for Katica Janeva, all the while, protecting the ruling party. But obviously there is a lot of evidence circling around how badly prosecuted and led this trial was, and we will hear about this as soon as the election date is set.
All right. Well, more to come on that. And I can't help but think, Cvetin, as you were talking about that, how this current government, with, as I mentioned in the monologue, Zoran Zaev as the de facto imperator, has been in power for 3 years. I think it was the end of May 2017 that they actually formally took power. And so much has happened in those 3 years. You've got basically the rape of Macedonia by Zoran Zaev and Greece and Bulgaria. But Zoran Zaev, it wouldn't have happened if Zoran Zaev had a different worldview, a different outlook on life. But so anxious to make deals with them and to be seen as a hero and a savior, not in the eyes of the Macedonians, except for a small few, the colorful revolutionaries, but in the eyes of the internationals. And he got neither. So you got the rape of Macedonia by Zoran Zaev. You've got as we talked about, the fall of the special prosecutor set up as the crown jewel, with the applause of the internationals. You've got the coronas, the coronavirus, obviously, and it gives, you mentioned, an existential threat, and the scandals, and just so much that I know Macedonians have got to be exhausted by all this, and I would imagine that they would want to have a fresh start, and they know what they're getting with Zoran Zaev. They may be a little bit hesitant about the new leadership in VMRO, but anything has got to be better than the current leadership of Macedonia.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is just beyond absurd. Zaev is just now tweeting that somebody in the U.S. Embassy, I guess, wrote his talking points now with the corona, and he is using a Macedonian translation of the term "new normal." This is now what he would
Seriously?
try to.
It's a new borrowed word.
Yeah. Да се подготвиме за новата нормалност. Let's get ready for the new normal. And the first response to this is you and normal in the same sentence doesn't match.
I thought we were going to go with "Free at Last" as a title for this podcast, but maybe that's a close second. We'll have to figure that out post call here.
Jesus. And besides, we mentioned Kurti, the discussions, and there was this lunatic journalist supporting Zaev who said, look, how highly praised our leaders now are. They get calls from distinguished leaders from around the world. Like now, Albin Kurti, it's Poland. But so, they're like a factor internationally. But again, when Zaev tweeted out, we discussed the coronavirus, economy, the the reopening, blah blah blah, and Kurti says we discussed. No, we discussed all this, but obviously we discussed the big issue. The elephant in the room is that there are people in DC like Grenell and apparently Trump, to the extent he knows that the Balkans exist, and people in the European Commission who are, and in Belgrade and in Pristina, who are pushing for a border change, redrawing of the borders, and Kurti is opposed to this. And as we said, Zaev and Pendarovsky are very opposed to this. And Kurti has been calling Pendarovsky, Zaev, Spasovsky, he called all of them in 2 days or something, to ask them to present a joint front, unified front against the border change. And we keep hearing about this, but never directly from Zaev or Pendarovsky, but only through Kurti. We hear about this through the Russian prankers who spoke to Zaev. We hear about this through Tim Judah, who tweets how Stevo Pendarovsky is scared of the coming border change. We hear about this from the Serbian defense minister, who called on Pendarovsky to stop pushing for this, to stop obstructing this deal Serbia is trying to make with Kosovo. But they never address the Macedonian public and tell them, listen guys, we're actually in existential mortal danger. The borders are changing in Kosovo, and once this is done, we are finished as a country, because we are obviously now an experimental state in post-national identity something. This is obviously the big issue for Zaev and Pendarovsky, but they never turn to us and tell us, as adults, as leaders of a country, guys, we're in big trouble, and we need to get prepared for this issue, which is happening right now. So now we hear about Kurti that there are elections. We hear from Kurti that the government, our government, is scared about this issue, but they never talk about it at home. And something is coming, and it's just a matter of time before it drops.
Well, that's another failure of the leadership in Macedonia. Also, I think we should touch on this. Where is it here? Oh yeah, I thought this was interesting. So, Goran Thozia, the head of the Film Fund of Macedonia, has so a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the Macedonian post office pissed off all of Croatia and the Croatians by issuing, and the Serbs, as well, and basically everybody, by issuing a stamp of, I believe it was World War II Croatia, the borders, and they couldn't simply Google a current Croatian map. So they issued that stamp, obviously, then withdrew it, apologized. If anybody finds one of those stamps out there, I would love to have a copy for my collection, because that will be a true limited edition collector's item. But anyway, so now Goran Thozia, the head of the Film Fund of Macedonia, has been spouting, let's see, one article here says hateful rants directed towards the Croatian ruling party.
Oh yeah.
And of course now the Film Fund is a government-sponsored entity, so there is it's not out of the it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to say that this could be in some way not directed by the government of Macedonia, but certainly smiled upon by the government of Macedonia. But what can you tell us about this latest scandal with Croatia?
Well, Tuzia, he really tore into Croatia, calling them fascists, Ustaša, blaming them for what was portrayed in the stamp, essentially, by our own post office, the Dewey, the Albanian leadership in the post office. They apparently had somebody who was Googling pictures of Greater Albania and Croatia, dividing Serbia, Bosnia, Montenegro, etc. And then Macedonian, of course, and then he used one of those images for an official government, state-issued stamp. But Tozia, he used to work in Croatia. He has a lot of businesses there in the past, and he was actually Croatian media would often report on him. He he actually had an apartment there, so he sold it to several people and pocketed the money. And he's apparently now a wanted man in Croatia, not only because of the insults, but the worst of all, there was a plan. Actually, Macedonia in the final essential years of Nikola Gruevski, the film agency, it hired a great Croatian. Like a film studio, the old state-run film studio, which has some really creative people there. They do some real interesting work. And they actually hired them to do like a series on Vmero, on the Macedonian national history, like the fight against the Ottomans.
Right.
But it was going to be done in this Tarantino style. So it was going to be glorious, like car bombs, in our case, the donkey assassinations, normal assassinations, the Solun assassinations, the bombs in, the sinking of the French steamboat in Solun,
right.
The kidnapping of Miss Stone, the American missionary, like all this interesting, really visually interesting stories we all heard about growing up, but done in a modern, Netflix style production. And Tosi, as soon as he came to power, he immediately stopped paying the Croatian company which was working on this already, and then he blamed them for not delivering the product after he stopped paying them, obviously. So now he's gone conspiratorial. So he thinks that the fact that we had this scandal with the stamp and that Croatian media were writing about this scandal, that this was connected with the Croatian company which was doing the movie, which he's suing at court, or they are suing him. I'm not sure who is suing whom actually here. And he started defending himself like, I stopped this deal, which was obviously, if it portrays any sense of pride in Macedonian national history, for the left it's horrible. So obviously he stopped this for political reasons, but he wants to make it look like the Croatian company did not deliver on the project. And he's now blaming Croatia for the stamp incident and calling them fascists and crooks and working with Viktor Orban, etc. And the Croats are like, okay, every country in the region is dunking on you, and we are not, and you're picking a fight with us.
Right.
Like, they're telling Zaev, rein this person in, or, we are also a new NATO member state, we support you. How about we stop supporting you? Would you like that?
Right.
And yeah, I don't think this will lead to a Croatian veto, but we are actually going out of our way to pick a fight with one of the few countries which is not blocking us for anything
wow.
at the moment.
Yeah, sounds like he's gone barking mad. So
yeah.
That's funny, and kind of dipping a toe back into my previous discussion about my time with Macedonia. There's still two films that I still would before the Lord takes me home. There's still two films I would love to produce. One would be around Ilinden, and the other one would be on the Miss Stone affair, but from a different perspective. And I'm not going to say publicly what it is. I don't want anybody to steal my idea. I've actually got treatments, which is what you would do, treatments written for both of these two films. But just to show you how deeply my psyche is connected to Macedonia, because I saw this article I think yesterday or the day before about Tosia, and so last night I can only describe it as a nightmare. I was literally dreaming that I had been offered by the film fund to make two films, but I had to accept that it was North Macedonia. So obviously I turned them down. And then back to reality, of course. If I ever do make these films, it will have nothing to do with the film fund, obviously, at least under a government of Zoran Zaev or Citizen. So we'll do some independent filmmaking here, some true indie films about Macedonia and about Macedonia's history. So.
Also, maybe 24 years with Macedonia is a bit too much if you started dreaming about this.
Cvetin, I have dreamt through the years about Macedonia and various aspects of Macedonia, and that's a good thing, I think. So it just kind of Kind of shows you, I guess, that to use the old Vulcan expression from Star Trek, the mind meld.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We are definitely melded into this country.
Yes, indeed. So, what else we got to talk about? I know we're doing this a little bit late in the week. Monday here was a holiday, Memorial Day, so I was out and wanted to record, but had not, as I mentioned earlier, had an opportunity to go down and explore some of Arizona's history with some family.
Yep.
So we'll cover the elections, the scandals, my 24, now into my 25th year with Macedonia, Branko Tozia, and the Croatian response. What else?
We have bad news about Atija, the star of the Honeyland movie.
Yes, what? What happened?
She's building her house in another village, a bit more populated. You know, she would be civilization adjacent in the future, but she's still commuting back and forth to the, to the original, the deserted village hamlet where she lived and where she had her honeybees. And apparently somebody came there and like smashed bunches of the hives, and she was preparing and stole some of them. So she, couldn't say whether this was related to her fame and people have begun snooping around her, or just like petty neighborly envy. Although nobody lives there. I mean, who would actually go there and do some damage? But maybe people who are interested. You have the movie on Twitter. It's easy to find them at Honeyland, and you can maybe people who are willing to help her out could contact her. She was being promised all sorts of things, like the film guys are building this new house for her, and she was promised a job by the government, but that apparently never panned out. They were gonna do like a tourism promotion campaign around her, or just brand her, help her brand the honey, and but I guess not much of this happened, and she's been now in some trouble in her village. But she did have an interesting, a funny comment that she's not afraid of the corona, at least in the village of one.
Good for her. Well,
not much danger of contracting the virus.
Yeah, I'll tell you, she's had a very difficult life, as portrayed brilliantly by the filmmakers. And then her, I guess for lack of a better word, her luck turned, and but the incident you just described is a bit shocking, unfortunate. But hopefully people will come to her aid and help her recover those.
I have the police outside the window. I guess they're trying to arrest somebody before their time is up.
People are a little bit over anxious to end the curfew.
Yeah, this is their last chance to
the last chance to get in trouble. Oh goodness.
Well, maybe I should go out and get arrested in the last chance I get. I actually, in the final week, I finally got a pass. I didn't even ask for one. I finally got a press pass, and I did some driving across the city, and I was stopped by 3-4 police patrols in just a short drive. But I figured people could just, given how carefully they were looking into the papers they asked me to present. I mean, you could just print out anything at home and just say I'm going. Mine was for a TV station where I was going for a
you remember
evening
media,
discussion. So. Yeah. But you could just print out anything and say I'm going somewhere, and the police were also like, okay, go.
Well, under Zoran Zayev's government, you could probably print out something that says I'm going to rob my local bank.
Yeah, it would work.
Welcome back to the Macedonian Content Farmers Podcast, episode 73, recording this on Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. It's time for, well, I've got one farmer's pick, Cvetin, and I've made a determined effort to come up with something each week now. This is regarding tourism, as we touched on earlier, and with the lockdown over, people are free to travel. Maybe Greece wants you all, of course, to come down there and spend your hard-earned dinars, but you can also spend them in Macedonia. And if you've got friends that have never been to Macedonia, I found this YouTube video from J-Way Travel. It's only 2 years old, but it's a 2-minute and 20-second YouTube video. Nice music, no voiceover, and stunning photography. And that's all it'll take is 2 minutes and 20 seconds of your time to see why you should come and visit Macedonia. It kind of covers many aspects of Macedonia, including around the country, Skopje, Matka Canyon, Ohrid, the food, the wine, and everything else. And so that is going to be my farmer's pick, travel to and tourism in Macedonia.
And we might even let you into the country.
Oh boy, that'll be the day that if the government decides to keep me out of Macedonia, they will create an instant martyr. So
this government might.
Yeah,
I know.
I
I'm surprised you're not. I'm surprised I'm still here.
And
okay, great. We'll link to this, and don't forget to donate to ATJ. You can find the movie guys on Twitter at Haneland, and you can ask them if they're working. I know they're working on the house, and how best you can help if you're so inclined.
That's great. That's good. I appreciate that. So, as always, great catching up with you this time, Sven.
You too, buddy, and here's to at least 25 more years.
Indeed. Thank you so much.
Take care, buddy.
You too.